Hello everyone, I'm doing a series of videos, and the name of my channel is My Mountain Life, and these videos are just kind of a capsule or time capsule, I guess, and an ability or a way to share my interest in trees, specifically fruit trees. I have currently, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80, depending on how the winter turns out. And as you can probably tell, it is March, I think it's March 9th or 10th. March 10th, I think. March 10th, 2024. And you can tell by the tree behind me and the coat I'm wearing that I'm in the northern portions of the United States. And in fact, we're very close to the Canadian border. And we live in as you can tell, mountain life. I live in a valley, pretty well known valley actually, but a valley between two mountain ranges. And it's I would show you that right now, but it's the clouds are low, and so you can't even see the tops of the peaks, and they're still covered in snow. As you can see behind me, it's March 10th. Many people have their their trees are blooming out, and the ground is still frozen here, and there's still snow on it. So this is kind of just like the beginning, and I'm hoping that as I progress through the season and I continue to do some of these videos, that you'll be able to kind of see the progression of spring, and then summer, and then fall, and harvest, and all of that. What kind of trees do I have? I have been growing, I have my orchard split up into like 3 different orchards, and none of them are enormous. They're all small, but they could be considered big for a lot of people who don't have an orchard or have just a small backyard. But my backyard is fairly big, and what I've done is I've planted trees in the home area about 5 or 6 feet from the fence line, which has a hedge here of lilacs, and I planted them all the way to the back of the property, or the back of the into my gate, and all the way on the other side of the kind of like it's almost like a rectangular shaped backyard. And I currently have, I believe, 17 trees back here. These are my oldest trees, and the types of varieties that I have here are Asian plums, cherry trees, sweet cherries, and European pears. That's what I've got growing here. Behind me is one of my oldest trees. This is a Toka Asian plum. It's actually a hybrid between an American and a Japanese plum or Asian plum. And in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the United States, there was a lot of research being done to try to come up with varieties for different purposes. One of the main things, though, was a variety of fruit that would grow in the colder regions of the United States, like Minnesota and South Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan. You get the idea. So basically, the colder environments, they wanted to grow more fruit in those areas. And so they did a lot of research, and one of the best ways was to cross an American tree with a Japanese tree. So the American varieties of plums, from my understanding, I've actually never had any of them. I've just read about them, and they don't really grow here. I think they're more in the upper Midwest. But the American varieties aren't quite as enjoyable to eat, I don't think. I think they may be smaller and may not have the taste that people like, but the Japanese varieties is kind of what a lot of people liked, and my understanding is they're closely related. American plums and Japanese plums, there's some closer relation with those versus European plums, which I think they're all part of the same family, but there's like another layer of evolution between them. So you generally don't see European and Japanese plums pollinating, but they were able to get American-Japanese crosses. The toka is one of the the local nurseries sell this tree pretty regularly, and they recommend it. The other varieties that are sold here are my kitty cat. His name is Stolter. He's my orchard cat. He walks out with me in the orchard all the time and looks for the voles and the mice. But the other varieties are things like black ice, superior, pipestone, La Crescent. I'm trying to think the other ones that they carry locally, but they don't carry La Crescent that much. It's kind of a rarity. Alderman plums you'll find fairly often, and a lot of times they'll sell them with this as the other tree that you should buy. So in other words, they'll sell you an Underwood or a Alderman plum, and then they'll want you to buy the toka to pollinate that, because the Alderman doesn't pollinate itself. Interesting thing though, this tree supposedly will pollinate itself. I've got a lot of stories to talk about in my experience with the toka plum and some of the other varieties, because I have other varieties I can talk about. But there's things that you'll read online about the toka, or bubble gum as some people call it. And one of the things they'll say is it's an aphid magnet. Like, amongst all your trees, aphids will go after the toka. And my experience is that's 100% correct. If there are aphids in your area, they'll be in your toka tree. I don't know why. I don't know how they can sense the leaves or whatever, but they're just drawn to this tree. I don't know if it's the fragrance. I don't know. I don't know how aphids work, but they'll go to this toka before they'll go to other trees. And it's just interesting to me. I'm not scared of aphids. They don't really bother me that much. I know some people are really concerned with them, but they shouldn't concern you, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. But the toka just seems to be the magnet that draws them to this tree. Now, what do I think? What's the thing with aphids? Aphids will curl your leaves up as they're making their homes inside of them, and they're sucking the sap out of the leaves and stuff. But they have natural predators. So they have ladybugs, they have lacewings, they have wasps, perhaps. They have all kinds of different predators that go after them. So I've not had a problem with aphids for a very long time. In other words, they'll get into a tree and then they'll get taken out. The only time that I have had a problem with aphids over a longer period of time is when there are ants around your tree. And the ants will crawl up the trunk of the tree, and they'll protect the aphids. And they'll actually farm the aphids, which is just fascinating. You can watch them. They'll suck the honeydew off the aphids and protect them from ladybugs and other things. But if you take care of the ants, then the aphids will get taken care of by the natural predators in your garden or your area, unless you don't have them. And I'll explain that in a moment. But the easiest way to deal with ants is that when you don't have your white protecting barrier, which I'll explain this in a moment, why it's almost imperative that we have these where I live. But if you don't have that on there, you take it off in the spring, you can just put sticky tape around your tree. It's called, like, I don't know what it's called, but it's stuff you can buy at the nurseries usually. And the ants can't climb up the tree. They'll get their feet stuck and they'll die. And so that's the way you deal with ants, is you just surround the base of your tree. If you've got aphids, surround the base of your tree, and the ants can't go up and farm the aphids. Aphids will then get taken care of by natural predators. Now let's talk about natural predators in your garden really quick. So natural predators in your garden, I just mentioned a couple, ladybugs and lacewings, but there's other ones out there. beetles, and there's all kinds of different ones. And they're going after the things that are going after your trees. You know, like, I don't know, besides aphids, there could be like weevils and things like that. Caterpillars even. You'll have like wasps that are predatory wasps that will actually kill the caterpillars. Or you can pick them off. But to me, there's one other thing that a lot of people do, and that is they spray their trees. Now, I'm not going to tell people not to spray, because I kind of think that in some cases, in some instances, in some areas, with some things, maybe it's the only resolution that you have. And I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and tell people not to do that, because maybe it is the best thing to do. I'm always questioning myself and researching and thinking and trying to determine whether I need to do things like spray or whatever. But the way that I think about spray is it's kind of like using a nuclear bomb. In the sense that once you use it, you have to keep using it. Because you use it to kill off whatever your tent caterpillars or whatever else you've got. And then, at the same time, you don't realize it, but you killed off the natural predators for those caterpillars or whatever. And those things are gone out of your garden. So basically you just used a nuke on your garden, and now you don't have your natural predators anymore. And so now what you've got to deal with is more predators coming in, and there's less, or not predators, but more pests coming into your garden, and there's less predators to deal with them. And so now your problem grows, I believe. Your problem gets bigger, and so now you have to spray. Now you don't have a choice. Now if you have a commercial orchard, I think maybe you have to spray anyway, and a lot of people in the permaculture arena would maybe argue with me and tell me that's not a good idea, and so on and so forth. But if you imagine that if you had, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 cherry trees or something, your whole livelihood's in that, and you can't perhaps experiment with, like I can with a small orchard. You can't experiment with leaving your things alone and waiting for the predators to come, and because your whole livelihood is based in that. And I've heard, like, I listened to one guy out of Quebec, and I can't remember his name, but he's a big, he basically said the year he didn't spray his organic garden, I think he said he lost 1/3 of his trees to tent caterpillars. Now, I mean, he didn't want to spray, and he wanted to come up with some different solutions to dealing with that pest problem. And I think he eventually got to that by, with his permaculture and his system that he has with planting. I think it's nitrogen fixers. So he has less fruit trees and some trees that aren't fruit trees in the orchard to kind of bring in the predators and homes for the predators and things like that to keep the orchard. But when he did have the organic orchard, I think he did say that he lost like 1/3 of his orchard. So if he would have sprayed, he wouldn't have lost 1/3 of his orchard. But then if he keeps spraying, he can't keep spraying. He has to keep spraying. And that's the problem. That's why I say it's like a nuclear bomb. Once you start, it's really difficult to stop, because the predators, I think, are a little bit more difficult to bring back into your garden or your orchard than the pests. I think the pests will be coming in at a big amount. So here's the other thing I think, anyway. I have my property goes right next to a river, and not every year, but every 3rd year or so, if we get a lot of snowfall in the mountains, that river will overflow and flood a portion of the lower portion of my property, and we'll get mosquitoes in there. And I mean, it's just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, boom, they just pop out of nowhere, and they're they're everywhere. Now they'll be kind of up in here, and they're irritating, but nothing like they are down by the river. And so we try to get a hold of the county to go, put some of the stuff that gets rid of the mosquitoes in there. I mean, not talking about chemicals, but something that they eat and then they blow up or something. I don't remember how the lady explained it to me, but anyway, sometimes they only have 1 or 2 staff members, and they can't get to it, and so the mosquitoes are bad. But what I've noticed is the mosquitoes will actually the population will boom and explode, and then shortly after, not shortly, maybe 2 weeks after, I'll start seeing dragonflies, and their population gets bigger. So it's just this thing with Mother Nature, right? So Mother Nature, the mosquitoes are the ones that are kind of like the prey for a lot of things that eat them, and so one of the things they do is they put out a lot of them, right? As fast as they can. They're just everywhere. And then the predators take a little bit longer time to get up to speed to get rid of those prey. And that's the way I look at it. It's the same thing with, I saw on my grandfather's ranch between coyotes and jackrabbits and hawks and stuff, and owls and stuff like that. So the jackrabbit population would explode, and there would be jackrabbits you could see them all over out there. And then shortly after that, I don't know exactly the time frame. I don't know how fast coyotes produce and stuff like that, but you'll start seeing more coyotes, and then you'll see more hawks, and you'll see more owls, and then the population of the jackrabbits gets under control and shrinks, and then the grasses come back up more, and that's the way that nature goes. There's a lot of this explosion, and then the predators come in, and then they break them down, and then maybe the predators need to move off because there's not as much food anymore, and so they'll go to some other areas to compete. That's just the way nature works. And your garden is really no different, your orchard, when it comes to the pests that are bothering your orchard and the predators that are preying on them, whatever they might be. I was going to tell you what these are for and how necessary they are in my area. They're necessary for 2 main reasons, and all it is just like a I don't know, irrigation, or I don't even know, something to do with plumbing and irrigation, and it's just a tube that's ribbed. That's all it is. And what these are for is 2 things. Number 1, voles. We have a vole problem around, and generally speaking, the voles don't bother. In the wintertime, you can see the snow here. In the wintertime, the voles will burrow underneath the snow. So they come out of the ground and they burrow underneath the snow because the ground is freezing, so they can't burrow in the ground anymore. So they come underneath the snow and they burrow around, and they find a tree like this, maybe younger. They prefer the younger ones, and they need nutrition, so they'll start to eat around the bark and the Cambrian of the tree, and they'll girdle it. So they'll eat all around it for their nutrition for the winter. And they effectively they kill the tree, because trees, they have to have all that sap and everything on the very outside. Right inside the bark is where it's going up into the branches, for the nutrition for the tree. And so if they girdle it, it's like cutting their neck off. So if they girdle that tree, it kills the tree. The other thing that we have a problem with is something called sun scald, which I've heard it's not just like us having a problem in the north, but it's very amplified here in the north. Because in February, just a month ago, the snow was deeper. The sun, if it comes, this is the south right here, the sun would come up in the south or come across the sky in the south. It shines on a tree, and it heats up the south side of the bark of the tree. Now you got to understand that in February it's really cold. So it's, I don't know, it can be like 5 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. The sun is coming in and shining over a certain period of time right on that bark of that tree on the south side. It's heating it up, the tree's expanding, but not on the north side. It's expanding on the south side, but the north side's still cold because it doesn't get the sunlight. And so it expands, And then the sun goes down, and it's like immediately it shrinks. That's the way I understand it anyway. And so it basically, it looks like the tree's burned. Like, and that you can see a crack usually in the bark because the tree contracted or whatever. And so this protects it. So when the sun shines on the trunk of the tree, it'll actually shine on the white, and it reflects it, and it doesn't heat up. Protects the trunk of the tree. So 2 reasons why we have these. And maybe if the tree's like old, you don't necessarily need them. Like this tree probably doesn't need them as much anymore, but a younger tree would. And so that's why I have that. To orient you a little bit, this is south right here. Of course, north is there. That's east and that's west. So the sun comes up over here and shines in this orchard/garden area. And the this tree here, you can tell by the way it's growing that the morning sun's coming up over here certain times of the year when it's leafed out and everything, and it gets the sun for quite a while during the day until it drops behind these spruces and ponderosa pine and Douglas fir, and then it's shaded. And if you look in this garden, it's kind of interesting because I have another tree which was trying to like peekaboo out around an old pear tree that I have. And so a lot of the trees in my south orchard don't get really a ton of sun because there's a lot of cottonwoods back in here and spruces and everything that are blocking the sunshine. Let's see, what else? I'm going to get into European plums this year. Like I was trying to say at the very beginning, that the nurseries here carry a lot of stuff, general stuff, because they want to be safe. Oh, I want to show you something. I have a game fence. There's a reason why I have a game fence. Let's see if you can see why. Right there. That's why I have a game fence. Look at her run. So, and I'm not the only one. I mean, and it's not just something to do only with the north. There is people who have problems with deer all over. So what I did is I put a fence around it, around all my orchards. It's called a game fence. It's 8 foot tall, and it's one of the ways that you can deal with deer. There's one other way that actually is effective. Deer are actually easy to deal with. If you go down to your hardware store and you buy 100 feet of 5 foot tall fence, and then you take it and you cut off 10 foot sections of the fence, for example, maybe bigger, maybe smaller, but just say 10 foot, and then you get posts. They're metal posts that you pound into the ground. I'll show you these later, but in other videos. But you just circle that around just like you might see it in parks and stuff, and that takes care of the deer. And it's really easy. The deer are actually one of the easier pests to deal with. Okay, so let's talk about the types of trees that I've got here. And that's really boring, isn't it? A lot of people, when they show videos, and by the way, I love other people's videos on orchards. I'm always watching people's videos on orchards. That's why I'm deciding to share it. But it's really boring to show you a skeleton tree here, you know. But I wanted to show you the beginning of this video series. I wanted to show you what kind of climate I'm in. You got the snow on the ground still, and it's March 10th. And I don't think the snow will be gone until end of March. Maybe you'll see the last remnants of the snow disappear. The snow on the mountains they'll stay on the top of the mountains until June, like 1st of June, end of May, 1st of June, somewhere in there. And of course, we have glaciers and stuff close where they have snow all year long. So that's the kind of environment that I'm in. A lot of pine trees, a lot of spruce, a lot of Douglas fir, cottonwoods. When we're talking about this white here, the aspens have white bark naturally in the birch, and I believe that's for sun scald for them. So they naturally have a different color bark for that reason. I could be wrong, but that's my theory anyway. So this Toka plum, I'm going to tell one story and then I'll stop my video, and then I'll have another one in the future, I hope. But I bought this for a pollinating partner with my black ice initially. Now, the black ice is one of my favorite plums, and it was my favorite until last year, and hands down. I'm not a big plum connoisseur, but what I liked about the black ice was the tree had hardly any pests in it, mainly because I probably have this, and this is your aphid magnet, right? But I don't think I had caterpillars in the tree. I don't think I've ever had a problem with any pests or anything in my black ice. This has aphids from time to time. That's all I've had with it. My production was really good. This bloomed a ton, but it didn't really put out any fruit. I don't know why, but it didn't. But my black ice put out tons of plums, like lots and lots. And so I just like 20 or 30, and it was a fairly young tree when it was doing that. So I liked the black ice, so I bought another one for my north orchard and another one for my south orchard. And then I bought 2 more tokas to pollinate them. And I think I bought an additional toka just in case I lost one or something. And I planted some other things like lacrescent, alderman, and pipestone. These are all Asian plums or Japanese plums or hybrids or whatever. And I have a superior, I think, planted here too. But I planted 3 black ice because I thought that was going to be my plum. Now when I had people try the black ice, because I'm not a big plum connoisseur, so I have other people try it, they said, oh, this is a good plum. Like, this tastes like a plum, like what we expect a plum to taste like. So there was really no big surprise or anything like that. It's just, yeah, it's a plum. It's a good plum. Now, last year, I got, I think, 2 or 3 plums off of this tree, but my other toka, I think I got 10 or 12. Okay, so I was like, okay, try a toka. Now the toka, the black ices are bigger. They're dark purple, like almost black. That's why they call them black ice, obviously. The toka plums were much smaller, where I'm at anyway, here, and they were like pinkish. So they're a pinkish colored plum. Very round. And so I was like, try this plum to some of the people. I just wanted to have them to taste it. And they went, oh my God, this thing's incredible. And I said, why? They said, you really should try one. And so I did. I'm not a big plum connoisseur, but I tried one. And oh, wow. It tasted almost exactly like candy, like a piece of candy. And a lot of people say, well, bubble gum, but that's not what it tasted like to me. To me, it tasted like one of those little heart candies that you get, like the really candy hearts, but a really, really sweet one. I could not believe that Mother Nature made something so incredible, like so good, as a toka plum. It was just astounded me. I couldn't believe it. And so people were telling me, you know what, if you you need to plant more of these trees. So I did. So I planted one more, so I have 5 toka plums now, trees. 2 of them are here in the home orchard, which has better soil, and then 2 are in the north orchard, and 1 is in the south orchard. I may get another additional toka. I may get 1 more, and I may get more beyond that. The problem that I have is I don't know what kind of production they have. You know, I'm hoping this tree here that you're looking at with this video will produce a ton of tokas, and then that can be my little farmer's market plum that I take there or something, if I can get some production off of it, because I definitely think they're worth eating. Even though they're small, they're so good. Oh my gosh. The guy out of South Dakota, I can't remember his name, that came up with this variety did such a great job for taste, but I don't know about production. But the thing that it's known for, that you'll actually read a lot about, two things that I read a lot about were the aphid issue, with the aphids just getting attracted to it, maybe other things. And the second one was that it was like an incredible pollinator for other Asian plums. Like this one, and I've seen it, like this one's full of blossoms. So there's really no, like, bees are hitting this thing and they're going to the black ice and the superior and all of that. Okay, so I'm gonna end this video now. This is just kind of like an introductory video of me just chatting. Like I said, I so much enjoy other people's videos that I decided that, okay, I'll start to do my own. But I'm going to do a pan real quick to show you the orchard that I've got here and the conditions here, so you can see kind of what it looks like now, and then I'll pan maybe in the future when the spring comes along and other things are blooming and the leaves are out. And then I'll probably do one later when I've got fruit on the trees, and hopefully I can show you how the harvest has been. So I'm going to go ahead and pan really quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and end it. And you'll probably see some things that you might question. Just recognize that things aren't really clean in spring. The grass is down, so there might be a ball in the grass somewhere. There might be plastic things. There might be wires because the grass hit it. Somehow I lost track of something, and the grass may have hit it, and it may become more pronounced now because of the everything's still, like it's still winter here. Okay, so let's start the pan here. I'm going to start with coming back over here to the edge of the beginning of my orchard, right here. So I've got two Stella cherry trees. I've got a Lampen cherry and a Bang cherry tree, and they're right along this edge here. I've got an alderman plum right here, and then as we come around, the toka that I was standing in front of, and then as we come around, there's a golden spice pear tree back there that's incredible producer. It's just kind of sad that the palates for people, a lot of people aren't quite as interested in the golden spice pear. I think I get about a 40 to 50% like enjoyment out of it from people that I've had try it, and then I get like maybe 40% of people that don't even want to eat it. maybe it's like cooking pear or something, I don't know. And then I've got another Bang here close in front of us, and then as we go around here, there's a Mount Royal back there, which is actually a European plum, but it's supposed to be self-fertile, and the reason I have it is because that's one of the plums that they sell locally, but I've gotten a bunch more European varieties that I'm trying out because it's supposed to be a warmer climate now here. There's my black ice. It's the first tree in front of me here, and then there's a couple pears over there that I didn't talk about on the other side of the fence. One's a Ure, U-R-E, the other one's an early gold. Again, pear varieties that are recommended by the local nurseries. I have a superior plum. This is the one I talked about that was growing out because the old pear tree right here that was here before I bought the property, this guy was trying to get out and get into the sunshine. Well, this guy now, this old pear tree has, it's really old, so I think its production days are behind it. And plus, I didn't really trim it or anything. I let it grow natural. And so it's become less and less of a shade tree for the little plum here. And then as we come around, I've got 2 more cherry trees, and I've got a Chinese apricot tree at the very end. And I've got stories behind all of these trees, my experiences with them, and my trials and tributes, which I'll go into at a later date. So that is the property I'm going to talk about today. Way on the other side, if your eyes are really good, you can see right in front of my other orchard, my north orchard, is a deer. How many deer do we have in this area? Whitetails? We probably have, there's a herd of probably 15, but there's like 3 or 4 or 5 different herds around, so I'm not sure how many whitetails we have in our immediate vicinity, but there's a lot of them. And the whitetail deer is like the, I want to call, I joke around and say it's the apex predator. Only because there's really no predators that go after it except for the occasional car that will kill it. So that's the end of my video for today. Those 2 piles are waiting for next year to, or this year, pardon me. That's basically wood chips. So I got them from one of the companies here that wants to give it to people because they chop trees down on occasion. So it's a great opportunity for it. All right, that's the end of my video for today, and this is my mountain life, and hopefully I'll bring you more with more in-depth discussions of what I've learned and the different varieties. I'll do a video on that, and hopefully you can kind of come along with me on my journey when I finally get 100. I think this year I should have like 120 to 130 trees. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.